Imagine a town where trust is everything, a place where neighbors know each other by name, and the local high school is the pride of the community. But beneath the surface of this picture-perfect town, a storm was brewing. One student, one decision, and one act of revenge would tear it all apart. This is the story of Emily Wilson, an 18-year-old girl whose life took a dark turn, leaving 7 teachers infected with HIV and an entire town questioning how something like this could happen. It began with a secret, a forbidden relationship that should never have happened. But when betrayal struck, Emily's pain turned into something far more dangerous. What started as a cry for help became a calculated plan to make everyone feel the hurt she carried inside. By the time the truth came out, lives were shattered, careers were ruined, and the town was left in shock. But this isn't just a story about revenge. It's a story about pain, choices, and the consequences that follow when someone feels they have nothing left to lose. Stay with us as we uncover the full story behind Emily's shocking actions. What drove her to this extreme? And could anything have stopped her? Welcome to True Crime Family Stories, where we dive deep into chilling cases, unsolved crimes, and the dark side of human experience. Join us as we uncover hidden truths and explore the twisted corners of the criminal world. Thanks to our loyal viewers and subscribers for your support. We're grateful for your likes, comments, and subscriptions, which help us share these shocking stories and unravel mysteries that impact our lives. Subscribe and join our growing community to stay updated on gripping cases. Let's get started. Nestled in the heart of the country, Oakwood was the kind of town where everyone knew your name. It was a place where kids grew up together, families supported each other, and the local high school, Oakwood High, was the pride of the community. Known for its academic excellence and tight-knit environment, the school was a symbol of hope and opportunity. But behind the polished reputation, cracks were beginning to show, cracks that would soon widen into a chasm no one could ignore. At the center of this story is Emily Wilson, an 18-year-old senior at Oakwood High. On the surface, Emily was the girl who had it all, smart, charismatic, and well-liked by her peers. But beneath her confident exterior was a young woman carrying a heavy burden. Emily's home life was far from perfect. Her parents' divorce had left her feeling abandoned, and her father, a former teacher at Oakwood High, had been falsely accused of misconduct, costing him his job and tarnishing the family's reputation. For Emily, the school she once loved became a place of betrayal and pain. It was in this fragile state that Emily caught the attention of Mr. Thompson, one of Oakwood High's most respected teachers. Married with 2 children, Mr. Thompson seemed like the last person who would cross the line. But as their relationship took a dangerous turn, Emily found herself caught in a web of secrecy and manipulation. What started as a forbidden connection would soon become the catalyst for a scandal that would rock the entire town. What would you do if you felt betrayed by the people you trusted the most? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories that keep you on the edge of your seat. Emily's life was a balancing act. At school, she was the girl everyone admired, bright, outgoing, and full of potential. But at home, she was drowning in loneliness and anger. Her father's unjust dismissal from Oakwood High had left her feeling betrayed by the very institution she once trusted. The whispers in the hallways, the sideways glances from teachers, and the weight of her family's shattered reputation became too much to bear. Emily was searching for an escape, a way to feel seen and valued. And that's when Mr. Thompson entered the picture. Mr. Thompson was everything Emily thought she needed, someone who listened, who made her feel special. At first, their connection seemed innocent, a mentor offering guidance to a troubled student. But it didn't take long for boundaries to blur. What began as late-night conversations in empty classrooms turned into stolen moments and secret promises. Emily believed she had found someone who truly understood her. But Mr. Thompson had his own secrets, a wife, 2 children, and a life he had no intention of leaving behind. As the weeks turned into months, Emily's hope turned into desperation. She had given everything to this relationship only to realize she was just a pawn in Mr. Thompson's game. When she confronted him, his cold dismissal shattered her. "It was never serious," he said. Those words cut deeper than any knife. Emily felt used, discarded, and utterly alone. But instead of crumbling, something inside her snapped. The pain she had carried for so long began to twist into something darker. A desire for revenge. It was during a routine health check that Emily received the news that would change everything. She had contracted HIV. The diagnosis was a devastating blow, but it also became the spark that ignited her plan. If the world had taken so much from her, she would make sure it felt her pain too. Emily's revenge wasn't just about Mr. Thompson, it was about everyone who had failed her. And so she began a calculated, dangerous game that would leave no one untouched. What would you do if you were in Emily's shoes? Could you see yourself making the same choices, or would you take a different path? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more gripping stories like this. What started as a forbidden connection between Emily and Mr. Thompson quickly spiraled into something far more dangerous. Their secret meetings became more frequent, their conversations more intimate. Emily, desperate for validation, clung to the belief that Mr. Thompson truly cared for her. She convinced herself that their relationship was special, that he would eventually leave his wife and start a new life with her. But the truth was far more painful. For Mr. Thompson, Emily was nothing more than a distraction, a fleeting escape from the monotony of his life. As the weeks passed, Emily began to notice subtle changes in Mr. Thompson's behavior. He became distant, canceling their meetings at the last minute and avoiding her in the hallways. When she confronted him, his excuses were vague and unconvincing. "It's too risky," he said. "We need to be careful." But Emily could sense the truth. He was pulling away. The man she had trusted, the man she had given everything to, was slipping through her fingers. And then, one fateful day, he delivered the final blow. Emily will never forget the day she confronted Mr. Thompson in his classroom after school. She had hoped for reassurance, for a promise that they would find a way to be together. Instead, she was met with cold indifference. "This was never going to last," he told her. "You knew that from the beginning." His words were like a knife to her heart. Emily had given him her trust, her love, and her innocence only to be discarded like yesterday's news. In that moment, something inside her broke. The pain she had carried for so long turned into something far darker, a burning desire for revenge. Just when Emily thought things couldn't get worse, she received the news that would change her life forever. During a routine health check, she was diagnosed with HIV. The doctor's words echoed in her mind, each one a hammer blow to her already fragile psyche. How could this have happened? Who had done this to her? The answer was clear. Mr. Thompson, the man who had taken so much from her, had now given her a life sentence. Emily's world crumbled around her, but amidst the despair, a new emotion began to take hold. Rage. What would you do if you were in Emily's position? Would you seek revenge, or would you try to find another way to heal? Let us know in the comments below. After the confrontation with Mr. Thompson and the devastating HIV diagnosis, Emily's world felt like it was collapsing. She spent nights crying herself to sleep, haunted by the betrayal and the weight of her new reality. The once vibrant and confident girl was now a shadow of her former self. But as the days passed, her grief began to morph into something else: anger. Emily couldn't understand how someone she trusted could hurt her so deeply. She felt like a pawn in a game she never agreed to play. And if the world was going to treat her this way, she decided, it was time to fight back. Emily's mind became a whirlwind of thoughts and emotions. She replayed every moment with Mr. Thompson. Every lie he told, every promise he broke. The more she thought about it, the more she realized she wasn't the only one he had likely hurt. What about the other teachers? What about the school that had turned a blind eye to her father's wrongful dismissal? Emily began to see her pain as part of a larger system of betrayal, one that needed to be exposed. And so, a plan began to form in her mind. If the world had taken so much from her, she would make sure it felt her pain too. Emily's plan was calculated and deliberate. She started by targeting Mr. Thompson, the man who had caused her so much pain. But she didn't stop there. She began to seek out other teachers at Oakwood High, men and women who had either ignored her struggles or contributed to the culture of silence that allowed her father to be wronged. One by one, she drew them into her web, using her charm and intelligence to manipulate them. Each encounter was a step closer to her ultimate goal, to make them feel the same pain and betrayal she had endured. Emily Wilson's story is one of pain, betrayal, and the devastating consequences of revenge. It's a story that forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about the systems we trust and the choices we make when we feel cornered. Emily's actions were undeniably destructive, but they were also a cry for help, a desperate attempt to make the world feel her pain. And while her revenge brought temporary satisfaction, it ultimately left her and everyone around her broken. This story raises profound questions about justice and redemption. Was Emily's punishment enough to balance the harm she caused? Can someone who has inflicted so much pain ever truly make amends? And what responsibility do we have as a society to address the root causes of such tragedies? These are questions without easy answers, but they are questions we must continue to ask if we hope to prevent stories like Emily's from repeating. Emily's story is a stark reminder of the importance of compassion, accountability, and systemic change. It highlights the need for comprehensive sex education, mental health support, and policies that protect both students and teachers. But it also reminds us of the power of empathy. If even one person had truly listened to Emily, had seen her pain and offered her the support she needed, perhaps this tragedy could have been avoided. As we close this chapter, let's remember that every action has consequences and every person has a story. Emily's story is a cautionary tale, but it's also a call to action. It's a reminder to look out for one another, to listen when someone is in pain, and to work toward a world where no one feels so alone that revenge seems like the only option. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with others. Let's keep the conversation going. What lessons do you think we can learn from Emily's story? How can we create a world where tragedies like this are prevented? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Together we can make a difference. As Emily carried out her plan, a small part of her wondered if she was going too far. Was she becoming the very thing she hated? But every time she hesitated, the memory of Mr. Thompson's cold dismissal and the weight of her diagnosis pushed her forward. Emily convinced herself that this was the only way to make them understand, the only way to make them pay. But deep down, she knew there was no turning back. The line between justice and revenge had blurred, and Emily was prepared to cross it. Do you think Emily's actions were justified, or do you believe there's always another way to seek justice? Let us know in the comments below. Emily's plan was meticulous. She knew exactly who to target and how to manipulate them. Using her charm and intelligence, she began to weave her web of revenge. Each teacher she approached was drawn in by her vulnerability and charisma, unaware of the danger they were stepping into. Emily played her role perfectly, feigning innocence and trust while hiding her true intentions. One by one, she ensured that each of them would share in her pain they had either caused or ignored. It didn't take long for the first teacher to discover the truth. Mr. Thompson, the man who had started it all, was the first to receive the devastating news. He had gone in for a routine health check, only to be told he had contracted HIV. The shock was overwhelming. How could this have happened? He thought back to his affair with Emily, the risks he had taken and the lies he had told. But it was too late. The damage was done and there was no way to undo it. News of Mr. Thompson's diagnosis spread quickly among the staff at Oakwood High. Panic set in as other teachers began to question their own health. One by one, they went in for testing, and one by one, they received the same devastating news. 7 teachers in total had been infected, each one connected to Emily in some way. The school was thrown into chaos as rumors began to circulate. How had this happened? Who was responsible? And why had no one seen it coming? As the truth began to emerge, the scandal exploded. Parents, students, and the entire community were in shock. How could something like this happen in their town, at their school? The media descended on Oakwood, turning the story into a national sensation. Emily's name was everywhere, her face plastered across news outlets and social media. Some called her a monster, while others saw her as a victim fighting back against a system that had failed her. But one thing was clear. This was a story that would leave a lasting mark on everyone involved. What do you think about Emily's actions? Was she justified in seeking revenge, Or did she go too far? Let us know in the comments below. As the scandal unfolded, the town of Oakwood was thrown into turmoil. Parents demanded answers, students whispered in the hallways, and the school administration scrambled to contain the fallout. The once proud community was now divided. Some saw Emily as a victim, a young woman pushed to the edge by betrayal and neglect. Others viewed her as a calculated predator who had destroyed lives without remorse. The debate raged on social media, in town meetings, and even within families. But one thing was certain: Oakwood would never be the same. For the 7 infected teachers, life became a nightmare. Their careers were in ruins, their reputations shattered. Families were torn apart as spouses and children struggled to come to terms with the diagnosis. The physical toll of HIV was compounded by the emotional weight of knowing how they had been infected. Some teachers retreated from public life, while others fought to clear their names. But no matter what they did, the stigma followed them everywhere. Emily's revenge had left a permanent mark on their lives. As the chaos unfolded, Emily found herself grappling with conflicting emotions. On one hand, she felt a twisted sense of satisfaction. The people who had hurt her were now experiencing the same pain she had endured. But on the other hand, she couldn't ignore the devastation she had caused. The teachers' suffering, the community's outrage, and the media frenzy weighed heavily on her conscience. Was this really what she wanted? Had she gone too far? Emily's quest for revenge had given her a fleeting sense of power, but it had also left her feeling more alone than ever. One night, as Emily scrolled through the endless news articles and social media posts about the scandal, she came across a photo of one of the infected teachers with his young daughter. The caption read, "Innocent lives destroyed." Emily's heart sank. She had been so focused on her own pain that she hadn't considered the ripple effects of her actions. The teachers weren't the only ones suffering. Their families, their students, and the entire community were paying the price. For the first time, Emily began to question whether her revenge had been worth it. Emily's nights became sleepless as guilt crept into her mind. She replayed every decision, every action, wondering if there had been another way. But it was too late to turn back. The damage was done, and there was no way to undo it. Emily's revenge had given her a temporary sense of justice, but it had also left her with a heavy burden, one she would carry for the rest of her life. Do you think Emily's regret changes how we should view her actions? Was her revenge justified, or did she cross a line that can't be uncrossed? Let us know in the comments below. As the scandal continued to dominate headlines, the legal system stepped in. Emily was arrested and charged with multiple counts of intentional HIV transmission, a crime that carried severe penalties. The trial became a media spectacle, with every detail of her life scrutinized in the public eye. Prosecutors painted her as a cold, calculating criminal, while her defense argued that she was a victim of systemic neglect and betrayal. The courtroom was packed every day as the community watched, waiting to see if justice would be served. For Emily, the trial was a waking nightmare. She sat in the courtroom, listening to the testimonies of the teachers she had infected, their families, and even her own peers. The weight of her actions bore down on her as she realized the full extent of the damage she had caused. The confident, charismatic girl who had once walked the halls of Oakwood High was now a shadow of her former self. Emily's nights were filled with nightmares, and her days were consumed by guilt and regret. She began to wonder if she would ever find peace. The trial deepened the divide within the Oakwood community. Some believed Emily deserved the harshest punishment possible, arguing that her actions were unforgivable. Others saw her as a product of a broken system, a young woman who had been failed by the adults in her life. Protests erupted outside the courthouse, with signs reading "Justice for Emily" on one side and "Protect our teachers" on the other. The scandal had torn the town apart, leaving scars that would take years to heal. As the trial dragged on, Emily began to reflect on her choices. She thought about her father, who had been wronged by the same system she had sought to destroy. She thought about the teachers, whose lives she had irrevocably changed. And she thought about herself, the girl who had once dreamed of a better future but had instead become a symbol of pain and destruction. Emily realized that her revenge had not brought her the closure she had hoped for. Instead, it had left her feeling more lost and alone than ever. After weeks of testimony and deliberation, the jury reached a verdict. Emily was found guilty on all counts. The judge handed down a sentence that would keep her behind bars for years to come. As the gavel fell, Emily felt a strange mix of emotions: relief that the trial was over, sorrow for the lives she had ruined, and a glimmer of hope that she might one day find redemption. But for now, she would have to face the consequences of her actions. Do you think the verdict was fair? Should Emily have received a harsher or more lenient sentence? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more gripping stories like this. For the 7 infected teachers, life after the scandal was a daily struggle. Some left Oakwood High, seeking a fresh start in new towns where their past wouldn't follow them. Others stayed, determined to rebuild their lives and careers despite the stigma. The physical and emotional toll of HIV was a constant reminder of what they had lost. Families were fractured, trust was broken, and the once thriving school community was left in shambles. The teachers' lives would never be the same, and neither would the lives of those who loved them. In the wake of the scandal, Oakwood High was forced to confront its own failures. The administration implemented sweeping changes, including mandatory HIV testing, comprehensive sex education, and mental health support for students and staff. The school also established new policies to prevent inappropriate relationships between teachers and students. While these changes were necessary, they came too late for Emily and the teachers whose lives had been forever altered. The scandal served as a harsh reminder of the importance of accountability and prevention. Behind bars, Emily began to confront the consequences of her actions. She participated in therapy and educational programs, slowly coming to terms with the pain she had caused. Letters from supporters and critics alike poured in, forcing her to grapple with the complexity of her story. Some saw her as a victim, others as a villain. But Emily knew the truth was somewhere in between. She began to write about her experiences, hoping to shed light on the systemic issues that had contributed to her downfall. Her journey toward redemption was far from easy, but it was a journey she was determined to take. Emily's story is a cautionary tale about the destructive power of revenge and the importance of addressing systemic failures. It highlights the need for comprehensive sex education, mental health support, and accountability in schools. But it also raises difficult questions about justice, forgiveness, and redemption. Can someone who has caused so much pain ever truly make amends? And what responsibility do we have as a society to prevent tragedies like this from happening in the first place? As we look back on Emily's story, it's clear that no one emerged unscathed. The teachers, the community, and Emily herself were all left with scars that would take years to heal. But amidst the pain and destruction, there is also hope. Hope that Emily's story will serve as a wake-up call, inspiring change and compassion in a world that often feels cold and unforgiving. And hope that one day, Emily and those she hurt will find the peace they so desperately deserve. What lessons do you think we can learn from Emily's story? How can we prevent tragedies like this from happening in the future? Let us know in the comments below. Emily Wilson's story is one of pain, betrayal, and the devastating consequences of revenge. It's a story that forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about the systems we trust and the choices we make when we feel cornered. Emily's actions were undeniably destructive, but they were also a cry for help, a desperate attempt to make the world feel her pain. And while her revenge brought temporary satisfaction, it ultimately left her and everyone around her broken. This story raises profound questions about justice and redemption. Was Emily's punishment enough to balance the harm she caused? Can someone who has inflicted so much pain ever truly make amends? And what responsibility do we have as a society to address the root causes of such tragedies? These are questions without easy answers, but they are questions we must continue to ask if we hope to prevent stories like Emily's from repeating. Emily's story is a stark reminder of the importance of compassion, accountability, and systemic change. It highlights the need for comprehensive sex education, mental health support, and policies that protect both students and teachers. But it also reminds us of the power of empathy. If even one person had truly listened to Emily, had seen her pain and offered her the support she needed, perhaps this tragedy could have been avoided. As we close this chapter, let's remember that every action has consequences, and every person has a story. Emily's story is a cautionary tale, but it's also a call to action. It's a reminder to look out for one another, to listen when someone is in pain, and to work toward a world where no one feels so alone that revenge seems like the only option. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with others. Let's keep the conversation going. What lessons do you think we can learn from Emily's story? How can we prevent tragedies like this from happening in the future? Let us know in the comments below.